Okay, hello everybody. It is the 6th of May. Nope. Is the right? Is it the 5th? No, it's the 5th of May. Sorry. Wow, great start. It's the 5th of May, first professional panel of the spring 2021 school year. Very happy to have Mr. Frank Piraino, head strength and conditioning coach of the Tennessee Titans. We're going to start off and have Mr. Piraino explain where he's been and what he does for a little bit.
Okay, great. Thanks, Drew. So again, my name is Frank Piraino. I currently am the Director of Strength and Conditioning for the Tennessee Titans. And I just want to talk to you guys about some career development and career trajectory and professional development, education, things of the sort. I know there's some allure to pro sports and things of the nature, but I'd like to kind of branch this off into all kinds of, professional development, because going back to be a student in Akron, in that program that you were all in, I felt that was really the foundation of my career and gave me a lot of options to what it was I wanted to do. But my career really started, if I trace it back and I think about this, and this presentation here is really giving me a chance to reflect, for lack of a better word, on my career. And it really started as probably a high school sophomore, when at that point, I realized I wanted to be a coach. And that was due to the influence that my coaches at that point had on me. And I knew through them that this, that is what I want to be like. That is what I want to go do for a living. As I can say, outside of my parents, I believe coaches in my life have been the most positive influences I've ever had. And I just fell in love with what they did for me, and I want to be able to give that back to others and be like them. So at that point, I always knew from, again, probably age 15 or 16, in one form or another, I'm going to coach. So when I got to Akron, I was, prior to, really my third year there was when I got deeply into the into the sports science. At the time, it was called the Sports Science and Wellness Education Department. I think it's a similar name now. But really, my third year is when those things started to become the bulk of my classwork. Prior to that, I wasn't a great student in all the general studies. And, lack of interest and attention, those things. But when I got deeply into the sports science, I really fell in love with the learning process of those things too. So I dealt with, I had Dr. Kepler, she was one of my teachers, Buser, Duve, those were my professors. I don't know if you guys still have Mike Duve around. I think he's there part-time. But that's when I fell in love with education and learning. And at that point, I thought maybe I would even go be a college professor or a physical therapist or things, just because of what I was learning. It became so very, very interesting to me. It still is to this day. You'll see whatever career path it is you choose, the opportunities are still there for continuing education and professional development. And I'm constantly reading research and things like that, whether it's physiology, just foundational physiology and things that I wouldn't necessarily use on a day-to-day basis. Like, I'm not right now going to go talk to professional football players about the Krebs cycle and producing ATPs and things like that. But I'll still read those things because it's just, A, I find it interesting. B, there may be a point in my career where I am, a professor and I go teach those things. And it's good to have for my staff members, so I can kind of teach to them some of the things that I continue to learn, and to have dialogues with our nutritionist and our physical therapist and our sports med. So, but Akron, that department really did lay the foundation for me for the realm of coaching I chose. Because that, again, going back that many years, I didn't know if I was just going to go be a high school wrestling coach or a high school football coach or something of that nature. And that was really, all the way through my college career, it's all I really aspired to do was coach sports at high school. So I was fortunate while I was going through the program at Akron, I went to high school right up the road at Walsh Jesuit in Cuyahoga Falls. And I was fortunate to be coaching up there almost full time while I was an undergrad student. And, while I was doing that, I was saying to myself, hey, this would be great if I could just stay on here full time forever. I aspired to nothing more than that because, again, those were the coaches that I played for that had such a positive influence on me. And I just really enjoyed what I was doing. So my last year at Akron, I decided I wanted to get a master's. Okay? And so I did my undergrad. My major was sport coaching, strength and conditioning was the focus. And I think it was just an exercise science, Bachelor of Science. And I said I wanted to get a master's degree in something similar, but not the exact same. So, because I didn't want to have two of the same degrees. So I went and got a master's in sports administration, just in case at some point I wanted to go be an administrator, an athletic director, something of that nature. So my senior year, I sent a letter to every single Division I head strength coach in the country, which at the time was like 110. A resume and a cover letter. And I heard back from two. One of them, Virginia Tech, wrote back and said, sorry, we have no positions available. Michigan State, the head strength coach there, wrote back and said, hey, we may have a position available. And the reason he noticed my resume is the head strength coach there, Ken Manny, who just retired last year. He had been the head strength coach there for almost 30 years. He also is an Akron alumni. So he noticed my cover letter, my resume. I said, I'm an Akron alum myself. I might have a job for you. Stay in touch. So I did, for the next year or semester, whatever it was at the time, continued to write, email, call, and eventually call back and say, Frank, we do have a grad assistant job opening up here. So apply to school and we'll talk. So that was simply how that worked out. It was a matter of luck. And I still think about the courtesy that the coach at Virginia Tech had just to write back and say, sorry, don't have anything available. And I kind of learned a lesson in that myself. And from Coach Manny at Michigan State, who I was a grad assistant under, he was very much into developing high school coaches, young coaches, as many people as he could. And he had a rule in his office. Anybody who reached out to him, high school coach, youth coach, whoever it may be, that wanted to talk about training or anything, they all got a call back. So I made a rule to myself, okay, anybody who reaches out to me, email, phone call, whatever, they will get a call back. It may take a while, but I'll always call them back. It's just, none of us are too important to help as many others as we can. But I think back to the time Virginia Tech, Mike Gentry was the coach then. He had the courtesy to reach back out and say, sorry, we're not having positions for it. But again, that has stuck with me 20 some years later. And there's just, elements of professionalism that you will see along the way. So I go to be a grad assistant at Michigan State. I work in the weight room from 4 a.m. till 7 at night, go to class at night from 7 to 10, wake up in the morning and do it again. So I worked with football, both basketball teams, men's and women's, and ice hockey. And the full-time assistant strength coach at the time was a guy named Aaron Wellman, who's now the head strength coach at Indiana. And he and I shared a desk, not just an office, but a desk. So we'd go back and forth, alternate who got to use the computer and put the workouts in and all that. And he and I spent a whole ton of time together. So it was constantly me picking his brain and picking Coach Manny's brain. And really one of the better learning experiences I had was listening to Coach Manny. I basically eavesdropped on him with phone calls. And high school coaches would call and he would talk to them about training. This is why we do this, this, and this. Here's why you should do it. I would just sit there and listen and take note after note after note. Because you'll go through your education and you're going to learn a whole lot in that program. I still use things on a daily basis, from kinesiology to biomechanics, things like that. All the ex-phys classes, even they still have the O&A class, organization administration. User taught that. The facility design class we took there. I still use those things daily. But you're going to learn things in your education there, and other people at different schools are going to learn things in their education, and other people are going to learn things in their career, and everybody will have different knowledge bases. So it's key to be open-minded as you go. And so I was just grabbing things from as many people as I could, picking brains, taking notes. And, I say this now at my, I think I'm in my 19th season. And it's like, I know far less right now than I did as a 22-year-old college senior. And I had all the answers. I knew everything. I could do no wrong. Nobody could tell me anything. And it's like, every year I know a little bit less than I did. And I rack my brain more and more the farther I get into this. But hey, how do I do this on a day-to-day basis? So there's so much information out there, and how do you apply it? And, constantly trying to evolve and be creative and be new instead of just sticking to the same thing for 19 straight years. It's difficult. So you always need to focus on not only improvement, but evolving, so things are different for everybody. So I spent those 2 years as a grad assistant, and my first full-time job, I got hired at Notre Dame. And the head strength coach at the time was Mickey Marotti, who most of you have probably heard of. He's now the head strength coach down the road at Ohio State. So I finished up being a GA in May of 2004. Drove down to Notre Dame the next day. Worked there with Mickey. We spent 8 months there from May until December. And at the end of the year, in January, Mickey got hired as the head strength coach at Florida. So he took me along with him. So 8 months later, I'm on to another job. And we went down to Florida, and I was the assistant there for 5 years at Mickey. The football team there had a lot of success. We had, off the top of my head, 4 of the assistant coaches on staff became head coaches at other schools, which was a fortunate set of circumstances for me, because it gave me opportunities to move on with that. But it was, at this time I'm in my mid-20s, and toward the end of being an assistant strength coach, I started to really want to have, go be a head strength coach. I was just chomping at the bit to go do it. And kind of like I alluded to earlier, you start to think you know more than you do. At least I did. And I was constantly, hounding Mickey, help me get the head job here, help me get the head job here. And after 5 years there, I finally got the head strength job at Marshall with our defensive backs coach became the head coach there, and he took me. So got there in January of 2010. It was about New Year's Day, roughly January 1st of 2010. And there was about a 3-week break there before school started. It was, late January 25th, let's say. So I had, 3 weeks to prepare a program and how to run it and how I wanted to operate everything, which was a lot of time after, all these years of couldn't wait to go do it. And I knew everything. I knew what I was going to do. I had 3 weeks to sit there and prepare before I ever saw a player. Had all the answers, had everything figured out. And the Sunday night before the first workout, I was sitting in a hotel room and I froze thinking about the next day. And I was like, holy shit, what do I do tomorrow? Had no idea. It just like everything finally, that's when, the moment of humility came that, okay, I need help doing this, and I need to continue to learn and figure it out as we go here. And so I stayed there for a year. And then a year later, I moved on to Temple University as a head strength coach there. Stayed there for 2. Our head coach became the head coach at Boston College, took me with him. I was there with him for 6. And then at the end of my 6th year, Coach Vrabel called me. We talked about the job down here. So I came on down here. I'm starting my 3rd year here now. So it's, for me personally, it has been a long journey as it is for most people. But it started back at Akron. It started for me in high school. I knew I wanted to coach. Got to Akron, I started learning things I love to learn. Okay, what do I want to do with this? I knew I wanted to go get a master's. I got that through being in a weight room, fell in love with that even more, started to learn more and more. And it just, some of it is a matter of luck. But probably the best piece of advice I got while I was a GA, which is the guy I alluded to, Aaron Wellman, who's in Indiana now. He said, things work out in your career, regardless of the field you choose, if you work hard and you keep your mouth shut. So whether that's in our industry or our, set of professions, or, completely different careers, just, you work hard and keep your mouth shut and good things happen. But it has been good to learn as many different things as possible, because even in my career as just a strength coach, I still on a day-to-day basis deal with our sports medicine director, physical therapists, doctors, orthopedic surgeons. And the more things you can learn and be able to have productive dialogues with those people, and vice versa, if it's that you want to choose to go be an athletic trainer or a physical therapist and be able to have the dialogues back with the strength staff. Our head trainer here and a few of his assistants are certified through the NSCA. They could just as easily as I am come and be a strength coach and know how to operate it. So it's, you'll see along the way that the career has done a better job of providing certifications, continuing education, things of that nature for all of us. And I think that's what the best professionals do, is continue to learn as they go. And again, that probably applies to any career. But that kind of sums up the journey. But if there's anything I can talk to you all about specifically, please let me know.
So that was great. Thank you. That was our best. We've done 3 of these, like I said to you earlier. That was our best kind of step along the way. A lot of times there's some holes there, but that was really great. We had a few questions from a few different people asking, with a head strength and conditioning coach, either at the high school level, college level, NFL level, what are you doing on a day-to-day basis? Are you the guy that's physically walking the athletes through how to do each workout, or are you more on the behind planning side? What does your day to day look like in a position like that?
That's a great question. So it's different from level to level, I'd say, whether it's high school, college, professional. It's probably even different from sport to sport. And, one of the biggest things, you would say, just on sheer volume, there's the greatest number of strength coaches in college, because there's so many sports. Most high schools have, if they do have a strength coach, it's one strength coach for all the sports. Colleges have, can have 5 for football alone, and another, up to 20 for Olympic sports. So you see the most volume of college strength coaches. And, so I'll kind of start with there. And there's 2 different roles, like I said, as a head strength coach. There can be a head football strength coach, there can be a director of Olympic sports. So depending on, where the job is, you'll have a different number of staff people working underneath you. But I have been, through my head strength coach years, just been with football, and I've had staffs typically of 2 to 3 full-time employees with me. And at the college level, some people use the analogy that you're the head coach for the off season, from January until August. And it's your job to most importantly is to lead the team. You're the voice in front of the team on a day-to-day basis. And that's where, as a strength coach, when I speak at clinics, I talk about there's really two different realms to being a head strength coach. One is the training, what exercises we're going to do, when and why. And there's the management, how we're going to handle this team, the staff, the budget. You're in charge. You're also a department head. You're a coach, and you're also a department head. So on a day-to-day basis, you've got to be the person that stands up in front of the team. You speak to them. You give them the goals, the objectives, the visions. You create the schedules. And depending if it's just one team, okay, that can be pretty easy. We have 4 workout groups. Maybe you're in charge of a weight room that has 15 teams coming and going. And once those things are said, it's like, okay, these are the workout groups. This is a discussion with your staff. These are the workout groups on a day-to-day basis. And when they come in, here's what we're doing. So it couldn't be every day starts with a staff meeting, or the previous day ends with a staff meeting, since we're starting it, whatever it may be, 5 or 6 the next morning. Here's what's going on tomorrow. Okay. Have your staff members get these things set up, physically set up, so that we can get through this workout in an orderly manner. It may be you assign assistants to take a certain group of people through the workout, or to oversee a certain station as people cycle through. So you kind of just a coach's decision, how is he going to operate the workout. You obviously have, prior to that, designed the workout. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then you start getting your players through. And I think the most important part of the job is that you were there on the floor with your athletes, coaching them. It's not a matter of, okay, I made these workouts up, these wonderful things on this piece of paper, I'm going to sit in my office while they go out there and do it, or post it up on the board, and I'm just going to have a coffee and walk around. It's okay. So I believe in being in the mix with the players. Okay, we're all out here. We're coaching. We're working. We're having dialogues. We're pushing. We're coaching effort. We're coaching technique. So you go through the workout groups in the course of the day. And then there's, at the end of the day, go back through, analyze what worked, what didn't, what went well, what didn't. Okay, let's take these numbers from this workout and put these in, so we know what we have to do the next time. Let's start preparing for tomorrow. So there's things that go into it, but back to the initial question, it's all of the above. You're involved in program design, coaching, everything. It's not like just act as a figurehead. You still remain a coach while you're a department head.
That's great. Awesome. All right, I'm going to ask one more, and then anybody else that has a question, please chime in after that. From watching different interviews with people in your position in different leagues, a common theme is the difficulty or the difference between coaching a high schooler in the weight room and coaching an elite athlete and someone that is very high up in their sport and making a lot of money doing that. Have you seen a difference in the way that you have to communicate how to explain an exercise or how to get through them, or is it more or less the same across the board?
Well, specifically, I think it works more athlete to athlete, regardless of the level. Okay. And that's really one of the great challenges of coaching, is figuring out how to effectively communicate to everybody. We have 53 players in a team. You got to coach in 53 different ways. And, whatever X number of athletes it is in college or in high school, and, some respond to positivity, some respond to negativity, some need very constructive criticism. Some are auditory learners, and you can give them a cue word and it will help. Some are visual learners and they'll need to see. So it's not as much of a level. It's just kind of learning learning how people learn, or learning how people are encouraged. And that's that's one of the other things that I began to kind of study and read on, in my mid-20s probably, was things like that. And I don't know if I want to use the word psychology as much, but leadership and learning and teaching becomes equally, if not more important than the physiology and things like that. But there's really great information out there about learning, more so than teaching, but about learning. How do people learn? Like I said, visual, audio. Some people learn from lecture. Some people learn from reading. And the statistic, I think they say, learners retain the most information when they reteach something. Okay, so it's basically, that's how you become an expert as a teacher. You teach something so many times, it's almost become ingrained back in you that you've learned it as many times as well. But that's great information out there. Is how do people learn, and that's applies specifically to coaching, and that changes over the years. We've gotten to the point now where a lot of communication takes place like this, or on a phone with an app, and some guys or girls may spend so much time looking at apps that maybe the best way to communicate a workout to somebody is over an app. It's just like, but these ways of learning and teaching are constantly changing.
That was great. I have a few more questions that are pre-asked, but I'm gonna wait to hold off. If anybody else has any questions, I'm sure you guys do. Please chime in and ask. Madeline, you want to go first?
I'll hit it off. So clearly, Frank, you've had a journey. And what really stuck out to me was that you sent a letter to every D1 coach that you could find. You only heard back from 2. I'm sure there was some disappointment and discouragement. What kept going on with the journey when you got 1 maybe and 1 no, and the rest just no answers whatsoever?
Great question. And mostly it was that going on to coach in college at that point was just going to be, I don't want to say a luxury, but I was very, very content coaching high school. And if nothing had happened for me, I would have continued to coach high school. And I didn't really have any expectations for myself, but I had a few things in mind. Like, I was coaching high school as a college student that, I think I earned an hourly stipend. It wasn't a full-time job. And if I hadn't gotten a full-time job, I had things in mind. There was, performance centers and things like that were opening up. So I guess I left myself no expectation of what was going to be next. And I just knew that I wanted to coach and train people, and at least for a short time. I guess in my head at the time I was thinking, hey, I need to go do this for 3 or 4 years, and maybe then I'll go get a physical therapy degree, or become a professor, or start to try to get into athletic administration. It just was the industry is what was appealing to me, if that makes sense.
Anybody else? Feel free to chime in here.
So, do you ever have like an athlete whose learning style just doesn't mesh well with you, or they just don't respect you as what do you do when someone doesn't just mesh well with your professional tactics?
Yeah, that's another great question. That's one of the biggest challenges is finding ways to coach everybody. And that's your job as a coach. It's not the athlete's job. They are there. They're going to be on the team, and they need to do their training, and it's a matter of finding the right buttons to push. And sometimes it takes time. It might take a year or 2 years or 4 years for it to work itself out. And sometimes it doesn't work until after the fact that, a player goes through a college or a high school program, and butts heads with a coach. And then you've all probably heard the story numerous times of an athlete who says, I didn't appreciate it at the time, but Coach XYZ really hounded me for 4 years, and it's one of the best things that ever happened to me. So you do have to keep sight of all those things. Again, that's your job. You need to be patient. It's not going to be easy with everybody. It's not cookie cutter where everybody gets spoken to the same way, or they just all are, as obedient as you would like it to be. So I don't know if I answered your question. Like, I don't have a specific strategy. How do you do it? I don't know, but someone once told me, like, that's why they call you coach, and you go figure it out. And a lot of times it's, no matter what your job is, there's somebody above you or lateral to you that you need to rely on. So as a strength coach, you typically talk to the head coach. I mean, I'm having these difficulties with these players. Okay, let's develop a strategy. Let me be involved in this. Okay, let's get a position coach involved too. Hey, who is it in the building or on the staff or in the athletic department that they do relate well to? Let's talk to them and see how it is they're getting to them. Or, sometimes it's just a matter of getting to know the player outside the weight room and off the field or the court, and knowing who they are, trying to find some common ground, and really taking an interest in who they are and building trust. And it's not always easy, but it's a great question, and it's something to be cognizant of.
Let me chime in here real quick. You have kind of answered this, but I just want to make sure I ask this specific question. If we want to be in your position one day or a position similar, what can we be doing as undergrads right now to help us get there?
So I think the best thing I did as an undergrad was get work experience. And like I said, mine was just a fortunate set of circumstances. It was at my high school where they already knew me and I already knew them, and they were looking for help, and it was right down the road from Akron, so I was able to do both at the same time. Because generally when you finish your undergrad degree, you don't have a resume. It's just going to say your name and a degree on it. So whatever relevant work experience you can get is, A, it's going to help you on the resume, but B, you're going to learn. That's equally important to putting something on the resume, is the actual experience and what it is that you gathered from it and what you learned. And that's also how you make contacts as well. Because I don't know if it's unfortunate, but a reality of athletics is it's a contact world. I happen to be in a few positions where other people around me were ascending, and I was able to ride coattails. It's just, again, a fortunate set of circumstances.
You said yourself there that you were in a fortunate position. For someone who might be not in a fortunate position or not have those contacts and wants to do something like you did and send out those emails, send out those letters to every email they can find, is there a line that we should be not crossing? Is there too much communication? Is there such thing as kind of trying too hard? Or if someone emailed you, like what is that kind of perfect fit between I don't want to be too much, but I also want to get my name out there?
Yeah, I understand the the dichotomy there of that. And again, that's kind of human nature, is to do both. To have some anxiety. Hey, I might be pushing too hard. Maybe I'm not pushing too much, but things work out as they should. And it's wherever you end up is where you should end up. For whatever reason it may be, and I think a large matter of deciding what is your passion and finding a way to pursue it. And like I said, I fell in love with the industry as a whole, and kind of was funneled to one of the branches, as strength coaching. But it's, I guess I can't answer your question for you specifically, but I do understand. And again, one way or another, it's going to work out the way it's supposed to. Don't ever lose sleep over did or didn't get a job that you wanted. It's like it will work out as it should.
In a position like yours, where it's highly coveted and it looks really, really looks like it's all positives. You work for an NFL team, you get to meet people that we watch on TV. What is a moment that you kind of got to step back and realize, like, oh, like I've done it. I'm here. Kind of like when I've seen, you see stories all the time when players get drafted into these professional leagues, they have a moment of, wow, this is really cool. All of my hard work has paid off. Did you, as a professional, more behind the scenes, have a similar moment?
Quite the opposite, to be honest with you. And honestly, it gets harder and harder every year and every job. And you grow yourself. And, I kind of talked earlier about trying to evolve and do new things. So it's not just like, hey, I created this program 15 years ago and it works, and we're just going to keep running it. And that's how my whole rest of my career is going to go. It's a challenge every single day. And I spend a lot of time stewing on, how do we make it work tomorrow? How do we make it work next week? How do we make it work next year? What are we going to do? And it's, with the nature of athletics right now, and there is a lot of job changing, for lack of a better term. I think I've been through 7 jobs in 19 years. Every time you change a job, you're starting over. So I finished 6 years at Boston College, and I came here 3 years ago, and I was starting all the way over from square one. So it wasn't like I've arrived. Like I've got to get started. You have to retrain. You have to relearn a new employer. How do things work here? I don't have everything in place like I did 6 years ago. So I've got to start back over with my own staff, retraining a staff, retraining 90 players, learning a new head coach or boss, whoever that may be, and what are their expectations for you. And like we talked earlier about communicating with your athletes, you also receive feedback as a coach, and you have a boss that's going to, have expectations and demands, and they're going to, you'll have to learn from boss to boss through your career. Basically, you're the one getting coached then. And I've been through, 6 or 7 head coaches in my career. You got to learn from each one. What is it they want? How do they give you feedback? And some coach you just said they're going to coach the players. You've got to have thick skin to get through that. But in a new job, it's also learning what is the expectation with our sports medicine department. That's one of the most important things. So it's, I don't think in coaching you ever arrive. It's just you constantly start over, which is probably a large part of the fun of it.
I have one more here, and I'm going to open it back up. You mentioned people who are kind of working not above you, but in the professional levels. Have you ever had a position that you were put in where you disagreed with someone who was a position above you, an AD, a coach, someone who had more authority over you? And if so, how would you suggest to someone in our position that we kind of get used to addressing that situation when that inevitably, yeah.
That's a great question. And again, this also ties back to the previous one about an athlete that's difficult to get along with, or difficult to push. You are now in the shoes of that athlete if a situation like that does arise. And in any profession, I believe this is a real thing that happens on a daily or weekly basis. And there's a matter of understanding your position and your role. And there is, there's compromise and dialogues and kind of locking arms with other employees and finding the best way to do things. And there's also moments of understanding when you're a subordinate, and that's the way things are going to go. And again, that's another fine line of things you have to go through. I just learned something the other day. I was listening to a presenter talking about some of these things, and they said, so you be careful with your boss. Sometimes they can only, the bosses can only handle so much feedback when they have a lot of employees, and you can't have every single employee come in with an idea or a disagreement. It's like, just so you choose wisely. But I have seen situations, never really specifically with me, but with strength coaches that I've worked with. And, in college, we have a whole lot of sports where there's a head coach with ideas for a strength coach, whether it's scheduling or training methods or whatever, that you either don't agree with or don't match up with what you've learned over the years. But it's like, remember, like the head coach, it's their team. Okay, it is their team, and however they want things to go on their team is, the way it's ultimately going to go. So that's, again, it's another one of the challenges. Like, okay, I had this idea, they have another one. I got to find a way to make that work. That's your job. This is how the head coach wants these guys trained. I've got to figure out a way to do it.
That was great. Thanks. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, cool. I have a ton more. What would you say is the biggest reward in the career that you're in? It could be at the high school, college, or pro level.
Relationships built, mostly with players. And I spoke earlier about, players who after the fact say, wow, what you did for me over those years while I was an athlete under you was a very, very positive impact on me. Along with, in this profession, we work a lot of days and a lot of hours, and your coworkers become family. I have coaches and trainers and administrators that I've worked with over the years that have truly become family. And I think that's, just like sports, it's like, even as coaches, you have teammates. And I think, all of you that have played sports have teammates from over the years that say, hey, man, that guy, that girl is such a great teammate. They're there for me forever. And it's, that doesn't change as you get older.
We were just kind of honestly touching about it before we got started here, about the burnout of a school year. And I imagine that there is also a burnout with being the strength coach of whatever position you are, when you have to deal with a player who is burnt out from a long season, could be in the NFL, high school, college again, any of the above. I'm sure all of these players feel some type of either mental or physical exhaustion as they go throughout their season. Do you have any specific strategies to kind of try to reel them back in, or kind of help them regain some motivation at all?
Specific ones, no, but I like to talk about perseverance, and that can be small scale or very, very large scale. And it could be a matter of persevering through one workout or one set of a workout for that matter. And it could be a matter of persevering through a season, coaching guys through that. It could be a matter of persevering for an athlete through a career that's not going the way they want it to, specifically with high school or college kids who get to their third or fourth season and they aren't playing or things aren't going well. It's okay. You need to be able to coach perseverance. And one of the questions, this will be kind of valid. One of the questions I've always struggled with the hardest as a coach, going back to a class at Akron, a coaching fundamentals class, principles coaching it was what is your coaching philosophy? And I've never really been able to give a thorough yet finite answer to that question. So I started to try to just kind of put it in outline form. And one of the words I always came back to was perseverance. And for the reasons I just said, so short term, so long term. I just always wanted to teach perseverance. And I think going back as far as, like I said, when I decided I wanted to be a coach, was in high school, those were the more important things to me than, the physiology and the biomechanics and the plays and the schemes in football or the moves in wrestling. It was like, how do you coach someone to persevere?
All right, if we have no other questions there, I have two more if we have time for it.
We do.
Great. Okay. So there's one fun one. So I'm going to ask that one first. If you could not be an NFL strength coach of the other three major sports, I imagine they mean hockey, basketball, baseball. What other sport would you choose to be a strength and conditioning coach in, and why?
It wouldn't be baseball because of the travel. And it would be a toss-up between basketball and hockey. I can't give a great reason why. They kind of have seasons that mirror each other, roughly the same amount of games. Both would be fun to train. So there's a lot of physical aspects to them. Training basketball players for the athletic, ability that is in that game, and hockey players for the physicality in that game. I would probably right now do hockey because I would have the most transfer to it from football to hockey. And I have a lot of experience in combat sports as well. So that would probably just be the best transition for me. But basketball would be fun too. And I trained both basketball teams at Michigan State. Both were very good. Both teams were in the Final Four within 2 years of me having been there. And that was a great experience as well. That I would have, again, had the circumstances set up, I would have continued working basketball if I had the opportunity to at that time.
That was great. As you said it, I came up with just two more quick ones, I promise. One is, you mentioned travel with baseball. would you caution anyone who wants to go into a field that you're in due to travel? It can be obviously you travel in college, you travel in the pros. Is there anything that there's at a point, is it too much?
Well, that's a personal preference, and a lot goes into that. Family situation, that has changed for me over the years. That's kind of why I gave the answer I did. We just had a baby 6 months ago, and 15 years ago, I would not have given the same answer. I would have said, you know what, I'd love to fly around this country and see almost every single major city twice a week. But no, don't let those kind of things deter you. Those are the things that they make you worldly, and it's another aspect of learning outside of the field. You go learn. My wife was always impressed about how well traveled I am. A lot of it's just from work things. Is that we can go to almost any major city, and I kind of know my way around, and that's just always been one of my interests is geography. So I like to know what's the city look like, how's it laid out, how do I get around. But strictly a personal preference. But I wouldn't be pressed to say let something outside of the career, like that's not part of the nuts and bolts of the career. I wouldn't let that deter you. Because you can find something like that in any career, and it's like a reason why not to pursue it.
That's great. That's great information just for anybody, really. One more fun one, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to end on like a real question. I'm excited to hear. But between all the different schools, teams that you've worked with, is there any event or athlete that you've been speechless through watching? Either a final shot buzzer beater, someone squatting 900 pounds. Is there anything that left you speechless?
Nothing I can single out more than others. And I do my best to keep an even keel as a person and as a coach. We had a coach I worked with in the past who had an expression, never too high, never too low. He used to say it to his players all the time. He was a position coach and always said it to his players. And I grasped onto that. Like I believed in that. And it's part of being a professional. So you do your best, not to get too high or too low, but not to be in awe of these things. Or it's just, we show up and we have a job to do and we do it. But you also try to turn into a robot who's emotionless either, that's also not good. But, it's nothing I would care to single out at this point.
Before I ask this last one, last chance. Any more questions? Okay, sweet. Is there any, and this is the one that we always end on for all of our panels. This is usually the best question that helps the most people. Is there any one or two mistakes or life lessons that you wish you knew when you were our age that you know now that you would care to share with us?
There's a lot, okay? And sometimes I say, if I could do it all over, I would get it all wrong. And kind of what I said to you guys earlier, things are going to work out the right way. And every time I look back and said, I wish I would have done this differently, everything after would have worked out differently. And it wouldn't have been right. So I look back, it's like every decision, whether it was right or wrong, led me to where I am, professionally and personally. And, we all are made the people we are, by negative and positive experiences, all of the negative experiences and the challenges, like those are the things that make us who we are. And without, the scars and what we, in hindsight at the time, think were bad decisions, like we wouldn't be who we are without those things. And there's sometimes in my life where I'm most thankful for failures and mistakes. And, the scars they give you and who they make you.
That was great. A great panel and a great way to end it. Thank you so much, Mr. Piraino. We'll have this up on YouTube. I'll be able to send the link to everybody, including you, if you want to show your family or something. I don't know. Thank you to everybody for coming. Thank you again, Mr. Piraino, for coming, and we'll see you all next time.
Great.